Good day, good people. This weekend sees the annual and solemn commemoration of those who fell in war in the service of their country. On Remembrance Sunday, we will gather for worship in church as usual, and the 10 a.m. service will end at 11 a.m. with the laying of a poppy wreath in front of the altar, and we will keep 2 minutes silence. It is, of course, impossible to ponder the great sacrifice of former generations without also being aware of the catastrophic impact of war in our own generation and the current wars in Ukraine and Gaza, as well as untold smaller conflicts which don't even register on the headlines of news corporations. People on all sides pray for peace and an end to violence wherever it occurs. But that also requires the political wisdom and courage to lead people into ways of justice and peace, rather than to continuously oppress and undermine the hope of peace by waging war and failing to enable people to meet each other as human beings, sharing an increasingly fragile and depleted planet. It seems appropriate that people should be allowed to demonstrate for peace on this weekend of all weekends. This does not undermine the honour with which we remember our war dead. Indeed, we commemorate their willingness to give of themselves that we could live in a society where there is freedom of opinion and expression, and especially where people might demonstrate their longing for peace. In York Minster on Saturday evening, there will be a vigil for peace in Israel and Gaza, including reflections from political and religious leaders and the expression of all our longing for peace. Those who are familiar with the story of St. Francis of Assisi will recall that he himself was a soldier. In his time, it was usual for young gentlemen of means to learn the art of war and to train to be knights, serving the political needs of their city-states with chivalry. Francis was taken prisoner in a battle between the Knights of Assisi and the neighbouring city-state of Perugia. As we see being played out in Gaza today, prisoners in those days were kept as hostages and bargained for money or other political gains, and it is clear that his time of imprisonment caused Francis to reflect deeply on his predicament and upon the human condition. It was after his release and return to Assisi that he began to feel dissatisfaction with his former way of life, leading to the crucial moments in his vocational journey when he encountered the living Christ on the crucifix in San Damiano and in the leper on the road, whom he embraced and set in train a bias to the poor, which remains such a vital strand in the Church's mission and ministry to this day. In his book, Falling Upwards, the Franciscan friar Richard Rohr reflects that every life has a quality of striving in its youth, like a soldier setting out into the world with strength and vigour to make one's mark, to achieve glory and honour by physical might and prowess. But that ultimately this is not the way of authentic living. And there comes a time when the human soul must put away soldiering and embrace a deeper truth within ourselves, a part of ourselves, perhaps, that we would rather not acknowledge, recognizing the pattern of sinfulness in our lives and our need of healing, which can only be achieved by yielding ourselves to God in obedience to Jesus Christ. The Christ of the Gospels was constantly at pains to urge us to a way of living that subverted the way of the world. Last Sunday we heard read in church the Beatitudes, the opening words of the Sermon on the Mount in Matthew's Gospel, including these words: "Blessed are the peacemakers, for they will be called children of God." There can be no better epithet for our time.